Yeah, good afternoon, students. So, in the previous classroom discussion, so we had a discussion on nested loop structures. So, now in today's session, we are going to discuss about the break and continue keywords which are used in the iterative statements basically. Now, I would like to share my screen. So, the today's topic for discussion is break and continue keywords. So the objectives of this today's session is this session will develop the students' knowledge on the usage of break and continue statements in loop structures. Outcome of this session is that after completion of this session, students will be able to develop the code in C using break and continue statements along with the loop control structures. So what is the break statement basically? So break is a statement which is used to end the loop immediately when it encounters this particular keyword. So its syntax is simply break, and this break statement is normally used along with the if statement inside a loop, and also used with the switch statement. So we already familiarized about this break keyword used in the switch statement to end every case label. So the break statement, how it works with these three different types of loops are shown here. So in the while loop, if this condition is true, then we are executing the break statement. So break will transfer the flow control from the loop. So it will simply exit from the loop. Similarly, here also in the do while loop also, if you see that in this do while loop also, when we are executing the break, so it is simply transferring the control to the end of this loop. So for loop, if you see that here also, if condition is true, then we are executing the break statement, then break will transfer the control out of the loop. So the break is used to exit from the loop. At any iteration, if you want to come out of the loop, we can make use of this break statement. So this is an example program. So if you see that this is a program to calculate the sum of the numbers. So user is going on entering the numbers. So whenever the user want to stop the entering of the numbers, then the user is able to input a negative number. So when the user inputs a negative number, the loop is going to be terminated. Fine. So as long as the user is going on entering the positive numbers, maximum up to 10 numbers, we are reading that. So we are taking a for loop here for I equal to 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. So we are asking the user to enter a number, first number, second number, enter number 1, number 2, like this. If you see this, okay, then scanf percentage LF is used for double. Okay, if you want to read a data type, double data type, so we are making use of this LF. We are using that is the format string specifier we are using for the double data type. So after reading that number, we are checking that if the number is less than 0.0, then we are simply coming out of this loop. So once we exit from this loop, we are immediately coming to the next statement after this closing brace of this loop. Fine. So if this number is not less than 0, then we are adding that number to the sum. Initially sum is 0.0, then sum is equal to sum plus number, the input number. Fine. So like this we are accumulating the sum value. So as long as the user inputs the positive numbers, so it will be added to the sum. So whenever the user inputs a negative number, So we will come out of this loop. So this is a simple example demonstrating this break statement. Now this is the reflection spot. So identify the output of the following code. So if you see that, so you can guess that this particular loop is written in such a way that this loop is to be executed j is equal to 1 to j is equal to 1 to 8. So that means totally 8 iterations it has to be repeated. So 1 to 8 it has to be repeated. So we will see that whenever if j becomes 4, so we are coming out of this loop. Fine, we are exiting from this loop. That means what could be the output it is going to print? J equal to 1, so j equal to 2 and j equal to 3. When j becomes 4, then we are breaking this particular loop. Fine. So that means it is going to print only 1, 2, 3. It is going to print that. Fine. So that is what the use of this break statement is. Next, continue statement is used to skip the current iteration of the loop. Okay, so if you want to skip certain code within the loop body in a particular iteration, we can make use of this continue statement. So the loop is going to be continued with the next iteration if you are making use of this continue keyword. So the continue keyword is also be used along with this if statement again, as similar to the break. Fine. So how the continue statement will work in different three different types of loops, if you see that. So when the continue keyword is executed, control will be transferred to the condition, loop condition. Fine. So it is transferred to the loop condition. So in any particular loop, if you are executing this continue, simply it will skip the code below whatever the continue, whatever the code we have written here. So whatever the code we have written here, that particular code will be simply skipped from the execution, and the control will be transferred to the test condition in the loop. Fine. So this code will be skipped. Whatever the code we have written below the continue, it will be skipped during that particular iteration. Fine. So this is how the continue statement will work. So we will see with an example. Okay. So if you take this an example here, I is equal to 1, I is less than or equal to 10, I plus plus. So what if I is equal to 5, then we are continuing that. So that means what happens here, if I is not equal to 5, so we are printing I value. That means I, it is going to print 1, and it is going to print 2, and then 3, and then 4. After that when I becomes 5, so continue is executed here. Once continue is executed, then I plus plus I plus plus, that means I becomes 6, so 5 will be skipped, and then it will be displaying that 6, and then 7, and then 8, and then 9, and 10. So when I becomes 11, so when I becomes 11, condition becomes false. Okay, so 11 is less than or equal to 10, condition becomes false. So we will exit from this loop. That means we are skipping the value 5 in this particular program. If y value is equal to 5, it will continue the loop. So that particular iteration, I is equal to 5 iteration, will be skipped. So this is another important reflection point on continue here. So identify the output of the following code. So this J loop is written in such a way that it is repeated 8 iterations, j equal to 1 to j less than or equal to 8. So if j is equal to 4, what we are executing continue. That means what is the output it is going to print? 1, 2, 3. When j equal to 4, it will not execute this print. It will be continuing. That means it will come to j plus plus and then come to the condition next. So it will becomes it as 5, it will print that, and then 6, and then 7 and 8. So when I becomes 9, so j becomes 9. When j becomes 9, the condition becomes false. 9 less than or equal to 8, condition becomes false. We will exit from this loop. Fine. So this is what the break and continue statements are basically. Fine. So the LOs are revisited here. After completion of this session, student will be able to develop the code using C language, in which they can able to use break and continue statements in different types of loop statements. So summary of the session is that in C language, there are three important types of loops. We have while loop, do while loop, and for loop. And break and continue are the two important keywords which are used in the loop statements. So break is used to come out of this loop or to exit from the loop, whereas continue is used to skip the current iteration, and also the code below the continue will be skipped from the execution in the current iteration and continue with the next iteration in the loop. Fine. This is what we have seen with an example programs also. So this is what the lecture level practice problem. Develop a C program to take input from the user until a user enters zero value. So this is very similar to the first program what we have discussed, example for break. Then this is another program which is used for here, develop a C program to print the following numbers using continuous statement. So if you see this pattern here, so the number here 3 is skipped here, and then 6 is skipped here, and then 9 is skipped here. So that means 1 to 10 natural numbers we are printing, and whenever it is divisible by 3, that particular number we are skipping that. Fine. So we have to make use of the continuous statement. Fine. Hope you will do this. So thank you one and all. So do you have any doubts during this particular session? So hope you don't have any doubts. Okay. So thanks. So thank you one and all.